All right, hey guys, we are back in our optional setting, but a little bit different optional setting for a reason. You'll understand when we get into what we're going to talk about today. I hope that you watched the Xavier Riddle video that I put up for today, because that was another excellent one about who we're going to talk about today. This is why I was so excited about seeing Xavier Riddle on Saturday, because I was like, oh, we're going to talk about this person, and I get to put the video. Oh, we're going to talk about this. So between the Wright brothers and now George Washington Carver, I hope you watched that. That was the second part of the second half of that video. So hopefully you did get a chance to watch that. But we are on page 369 in your history books, page 369. And we are going to talk about George Washington Carver. And you can look on page 369, look at our timeline, first of all, at the bottom. Remember where we started back in the 1400s with Christopher Columbus? We are so far past that now. We are in the 1800s. And you can see this is even after the Civil War took place. So this is after Abraham Lincoln, after the Civil War. George Washington Carver was born about 1859. But even if you look down, I don't know if your book has the same thing. It says about 1864. So that's interesting. So I'm not sure which it is. But remember, back then there weren't good records kept. So that's why that C circa, which means about, is written there, because we're not sure exactly when he was born, which year it would have been. But he died in 1943, and that they do know. But you look at during his lifetime, World War I, World War II took place. So he lived during a very interesting time in history. Well, let's find out a little bit about George Washington Carver. Raiders of the Civil War. During the time of the Civil War in the United States, the country was troubled. Sometimes innocent people were hurt. One cold night in 1861, men called raiders broke into a slave cabin in Diamond Grove, Missouri. And think of where Missouri is. We've learned all of our states. You know them by now. So think that through carefully. When they broke into that slave cabin, so this was a person who already was a slave owned by someone, they put a young mother named Mary and her baby on the back of a horse and took them away. They hoped to make money by selling her to another slave owner. So that's how bad things were. They were taking slaves that were already owned by somebody, stealing them, and hoping to sell them to somebody else so that they could get even more money for them. And they took her baby with her. Moses Carver tried to find Mary and her baby, but only the baby was rescued and taken back to the Carver family. So Moses Carver was the owner of Mary and her baby, and he tried to find, where are they? What happened to them? Where did the slave owners bring them? The slave raiders bring them, and he couldn't find Mary at all. We don't know what happened to her, but the baby was found, and it's kind of a sad story to think about. I could do that as the next little part there. I could do that. We're going to see who said that over and over and over. I think you already figured it out. Mr. and Mrs. Carver decided to raise the baby named George and his older brother, James. Did you see what just happened? So they owned Mary and the boys, but when Mary was taken away and who knows what happened, Moses Carver and his wife Sue decided to raise these boys as their own children. So they kept them. Instead of selling them to somebody else and leaving them or whatever, they took care of them as their own. As they grew, the boys called Mr. and Mrs. Carver Uncle Mose and Aunt Sue. Aunt Sue, what are you doing? Asked the bright, curious George one day. I'm knitting, George. I can do that too. Boys and girls, I don't know. I'll have to tell you, I haven't tried knitting before. When I was in elementary, our Sunday school teachers at the time, They took us to their houses on like Saturday mornings, I think, and had like a little girls' time where they taught us to sew, and they taught us a little bit of knitting. The only thing that I knit was like a long, thin scarf, and I just put it on my Barbies and wrapped it around as like a scarf. Because that's all I could do. I couldn't do a nice big blanket. I couldn't make it any nicer. I've even looked online recently, like, oh, I'm going to watch YouTube and I'm going to learn how to knit. And it hasn't happened. Here's George, and he's watching his Aunt Sue. And, you know, and I'm sure she's doing it fast, because when people know how to knit, they, oof, and it's just amazing to watch. And George watches. I could do that. Oh, George, sweetheart, it's hard though. I'll teach you someday, but it's a lot harder than you think. So, and she's just going, and he's like, oh, no, I can do that. George ran out into the yard, and he found 2 strong turkey feathers. He removed the soft part of the feathers until only the quills were left. So when you look at a feather, there's the part that all those little feathery pieces are stuck to. So he took just that middle part, pulled all the feathers off, and had that middle part of 2 strong turkey feathers. Then he unraveled an old sock and a mitten. Oh, no, George, don't take oh, I know they're old, but I was gonna, okay, that's fine. Just, you do what you need to do. He unravels them, an old sack and a mitten, and with his turkey quills and yarn. Is this right, Aunt Sue? What? How? What? Well, yes, George, yes, that's right. She's amazed that he just began to knit, just by watching her. I declare, George, you certainly can use your fingers well. Later, he saw Aunt Sue crocheting. Borrowing her hook, he surprised her by making the most beautiful lace she had ever seen. And again, I've tried crocheting too, because crocheting is just one hand. So I'm like, oh, it's just one hand instead of 2 needles, just one hand. That was even worse than the knitting was. I couldn't even begin. My friend, Mrs. Larson, you know, my friends, Zach and Alex and Rachel and Gabby and Nico, my boy Nico, their mom was an amazing crocheter, and she crocheted many beautiful things. But it's hard. It's hard work. George started doing it. Oh, how does this look, Aunt Sue? That's really good, George. That's the best place. That's better than mine. Oh my goodness. One day, George went to his neighbor's house. For the first time, he saw painted pictures. They didn't have a lot of that back then. George stood staring at the beautiful pictures. I could do that, he said to himself. Away he ran to his secret place, the woods. George had no paints, no brushes. How are you going to paint a beautiful picture like that if you don't have anything to paint with? It doesn't work with nothing. So he looked around him. He's not going to give up. Just give him a minute. Just take some time. He looked around him. He saw stones and rocks, some leaves and some berries. And he got an idea. He pressed the juice from the berries. He found a small sharp stone and a large smooth rock. Taking that small sharp stone, he etched or scratched a picture onto the large smooth rock that he had, and used the berry juice to give his picture color. Then he stood back and admired his work. Now, he wasn't bragging. He wasn't being boastful. He was just believing, hey, I think if I try, I can do it. I'm pretty sure I could probably do that. I'm going to try. And he just did, and he tried, and he made things happen because he tried. I knew I could do it, he proudly told himself. George was not a strong boy. He could not work in the fields with Uncle Mose and James, but he helped in other ways. He learned to wash clothes, cook, and bake and milk cows. To George, any job worth doing was worth doing well. Read that with me, 3rd grade. Any job worth doing is worth doing well. One more time. Any job worth doing is worth doing well. Everything that you do, do it well. Do it to the best of your ability. Well, a special hobby. All children have something special that they would rather do than anything else in the world. Like right now, you're like, Miss Monroe, can you just stop this video? Because I want to get to my hobby, my video games, or my LOL dolls, or whatever it is. I want to get to that. So can you stop talking? I want to get to my squishy, whatever those things are, squeezy, squishies, squishables, squeezables, whatever. I don't know. You know what they are. But anyway, there's hobbies that you have that are your favorite things in the world. Well, George's favorite hobby was to go into the woods by himself to his secret place. There he studied each plant that he came across. And so here are Miss Monroe's plants that she loves very dearly. Some of you gave me some of these. So he would go to a secret place and study each plant. He studied and noticed the carpets of moss growing by a tree. He knelt down to study the ferns. What are those little round things on the back of each leaf, he wondered. He was a curious mind, and he wanted to always learn more. And we're going to have to wait to learn more about him. Sorry. We'll find out more about his secret place, the woods, and about his love for plants and what he did to figure out how to take care of them and how to help them, and a special nickname that was given to him by people in his neighborhood. So we'll find out all of those things afterwards. Please take some time to read the important words, important names, and important places. I didn't want to do that just now because of our time's sake, but please take time to do that. We might try to go through that tomorrow, or not tomorrow because we have tomorrow off, woohoo, or the next day, but make sure that you do that. Oh yes, and again, just to reiterate, Josie's my winner of the airplane contest because nobody else sent me any airplane videos, and she did. And she told me how many seconds or her plane was able to fly. I'm not telling it because if nobody else sends me anything, then she's the winner. So good job, Josie. Thanks for that video. Take care, you guys. I'll see you in the next video.